What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Clutch Talk. I think we're on episode 6 now, and continue with our season previews of every college football team, or as many as I can get through. And today it'll be Oklahoma and Texas Tech. Previewing those two teams this upcoming season. Still thinking about what teams I may want to do next. I'm trending towards Tennessee and Georgia. But I'm also looking into Notre Dame and Oregon, those teams like that. Still got to get through those. But with that being said, we're going to get right into it. If you're new here and like the video, subscribe to the channel. And let's get started here today. We're going to start with Oklahoma. Very underwhelming year last year under Brett Venables. Things did not go very well. Went 5-7, didn't make a bowl game. They went 6-7. They didn't make a bowl game, lose to Navy in the bowl game. Offense was really, really bad last year. That was kind of the story of the year. Now you have a new quarterback in, John Mateers, a new quarterback. He's a transfer from Washington State. And they have a new offensive system now. They went and brought Washington State's offensive coordinator over as well to follow, and John Mateer followed him. And so that's what's going to be. John Mateer was really good last year, 29 touchdowns. I mean, he's a dual threat guy, 15 rushing touchdowns, 830 yards. You look, a lot of people have him as a preseason top 6 quarterback in the conference. He could have a really big year. But again, offense is going to be the story this year for Oklahoma, seeing if they can get those numbers up at all. And that they went and got a big get in the spring portal. And they went and got Jay Knott, who's from Cal. He did not have a good year last year, but the year before last, he had about 1,300 yards rushing. Struggled with injuries, struggled to stay on the field last year, but I think him and Javonte Barnes together could be a lethal 1-2 punch out of the backfield, and that could be a very dynamic running back duo. The wide receiver room is completely revamped from what it was last year at Oklahoma. Javonte Gibson had 1,000 yards. He's from Arkansas Pine Bluff. He'll be probably the number 1, number 2. Keontez Lewis, he's a transfer from Southern Illinois, had about 790 yards. And they went and got Isaiah Sategna, who had about 500 yards, a transfer from Arkansas, who really didn't get a lot of playing time until last year, but he was a very talented kid out of high school, electric speed, and Brent Venables and that staff will use him very well with his speed. Tight end room, they went and got a transfer from Kennesaw, and Carson Kemp had 3 touchdowns, 217 yards. A completely revamped offense. You got new quarterback, new running back, 3 new wide receivers, 1 tight end. I mean, just so much change. Now, the big question, again, is this offensive line. They were terrible. Oklahoma's offensive line was so bad last year. But they returned 4 of the starters, so maybe the continuity makes things better. And they got a new tackle from Stanford that it will start at right tackle for them and could have a big year and could boost that offensive line. Defensively, Marvin Jones is back. He's a transfer from Florida State, had 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. They returned Mason Thomas, who had 9 sacks last year, Grayson Halton, who had 5 sacks. So a lot of returners on the defensive line. Linebacker, they lose Danny Stutzman, but they have Kip Lewis still there, 4 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, and then Kobe McKenzie with 3 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. In the corner and secondary, led by Kendall Dolby and Robert Spears Jennings. And Kendall Daniels could be very good for them at 6 sacks and 7 pass deflections. He'll play more of the nickel back. But defense was not the problem last year. It was all about offense for Oklahoma, if you don't remember. And the thing was, it was almost sad to watch the offense because the defense would keep them in so many games against some really, really good football teams. They could if they had a better offense against Tennessee, they'd probably beat Tennessee. Or Missouri, they probably beat them. So looking at the numbers from last year, just to compare, they were 119th in passing. That will not be the case this year. Zero doubt it will be the case this year with John Mateer at quarterback. He is too good, and he'll provide too much of a boost offensively for that to happen. They were 76 in rushing. I actually think those numbers will go up as well, just with Jay Knott, Javonte Barnes being a lethal 1-2 punch. 113th in total, that has to go up. 97th in scoring has to go up. The number I was going to talk about, 130th in sacks allowed. There are 134 teams in the FBS, and they were 130th in sacks allowed per game. They were terrible. The offensive line has to be better. If you want the rushing numbers to be better, you got to be better on the offensive line. And if you want John Mateer to be John Mateer, you have to protect them, and that offensive line has got to be better than what it was. They were 93rd on third down and 83rd in the red zone. The worst offense in the SEC. It's why they got embarrassed against South Carolina. It's why they got embarrassed against Texas. It's why they lost to Ole Miss, why they lost to LSU. They could not muster any kind of offense. Okay? I mean, the defense was so good last year. I mean, that's the reason they beat Alabama. They played good defense. You just got to be able to put up points. Because if you look at these defensive numbers, 43rd in passing, 24th in rushing, 19th in total defense there, 25th in sacks, 39th on third down, 60th in the red zone. Got to be a little better in the red zone. But overall, very good defense. And Venables is continuing to recruit big boys up front, good linebackers. The defense under him will continue to improve until it's a top-tier defense. That's who Brett Venables is. With that being said, this is a make-or-break year for Brett Venables. You can't continue to play this bad in the SEC and keep your job, especially not Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the biggest of the big, and it's a prideful program. You cannot muster 6 and 7 seasons continuously. Now, with that being said, if you look, his first year in the Big 12, they struggled. Then they go 10 and 3 the next year. Turns into the SEC, they struggled his first year. I think there's a chance that he could bounce back and have a good year this year. He brought in a really good transfer class, much better quarterback, new offensive system, not Seth Luttrell anymore. And again, continuing to build that defense because he's recruited very well. But this is the make or break year for him. If he does not have a good year this year, I think he could have a chance of losing his job, or he could be on the very, very hottest seat in college football heading into the next season. With that being said, here's what I think the worst, best, and most likely will be for Oklahoma this year. I think the worst they could do is 5 and 7. If you look at their schedule, they play Michigan week 2 at home. If the offense isn't better, or let's say the defense takes a step back, or Mateer struggles, or still trying to gel, they could lose that game. They go to Texas, or I shouldn't say go to Texas, but if they're playing Texas, that's probably a game they're just going to lose. They go to South Carolina this year. They play Ole Miss. They go to Tennessee. They go to Alabama. They play LSU. They play Missouri. I mean, this is not an easy schedule. It's actually one of the hardest schedules in the conference. So 5 and 7, it's the worst scenario, but it's also not unlikely that it could happen, especially with that 5-game stretch of going to Texas, to South Carolina, Ole Miss, to Tennessee, and to Alabama. It's very possible, and especially if you don't play good, if you don't want to go 5 and 7, you got to beat the Michigans and the Auburns and the Missouris, I think, to have a chance of that. But I think that is the worst scenario. The best, I'm going to say 9 and 3. I could see this being similar to, again, his first year in the Big 12. They weren't very good under Venables. They were really good his second year. And then goes to the SEC, struggles, and then bounces back with another 9-3, 10-3 season. I just don't see where he can beat Texas. I don't think he has a team quite for that. And out of the 3 road games of South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, I don't see him winning all 3. I don't even see him winning 2. I think he'll lose 2 of those 3. Whether it's at South Carolina, at Tennessee, or Alabama, I don't know, but I think he'll lose. And Oklahoma will lose 2 of those 3. And I think that's the best they can do. I think they're possible of beating LSU at home, but to me, that's the best case scenario. The most likely, I'm going to say 8 and 4. Look at it. Like I said, I named those 3 losses, and I think they could lose to LSU at home to end the year, or they could lose to Ole Miss at home. One of those games, but I think the most likely is 8 and 4. I do think the offense will be much, much better, but I don't think it'll go from 119th in passing to first. I don't think it'll go from 113th in total offense all the way to top 10. And I don't think the offensive line's going to improve enough from 130th in sacks allowed to top 20. And for that reason, I think 8 and 4 is the best, which would be enough to keep Brett Venables' job if you're Oklahoma. If you can go 8 and 4, win the bowl game, you go 9 and 4, that's a good turnaround. Second year in the SEC, you're building momentum. And I think that'll be considered a very, very successful season for Oklahoma if they can go 8 and 4. And I think that's the most likely for that to happen. And that would not be a bad year at all for Oklahoma. Now 5-7, again, it's the worst scenario, but I could see it happening. They're a huge wild card this year, just with how much different talent they brought in the new system, and they're a team with a brutal schedule, and it's just so hard to trust. So they could go all over the place, but I think the most likely would be 8-4. We're at the midway point of the video. If you like the video, again, like it and subscribe. And we're going to move on to Texas Tech now. Going from Oklahoma's former conference in the Big 12, Texas Tech has massive expectations this year under Joey McGuire, and they're returning a lot of talent, and people think that this is potential Big 12 sleeper along with the Arizona States of the world. They returned their quarterback, Baron Morton, had 27 touchdowns and 3,300 yards. He was really good. They go get a transfer running back from USC and Quentin Joyner, who was the lead back for them. He could have a big year, 478 yards last year. He'll get asked a lot more because Texas Tech does run the ball more than USC. So that'll be interesting to see what he does. Wide receiver room, they go get Caleb Douglas and Coy Eakin returning. Both had plus 600 yards last year receiving. They're expected to take a big jump. They go get Reggie Virgil from Miami of Ohio. Had 816 yards receiving last year. He could be a very reliable number 3. And they go get this transfer from Louisiana at tight end. Terrence Carter at 600 yards at the tight end spot. So 4 high-level pass catchers from last year now in this offense. The offensive line, they got 2 transfer tackles. One from North Carolina, Howard Sampson, and one from Miami of Ohio, just like Terrence Carter and Will Jados. Those will be the very interesting spots to watch on Texas Tech's offensive line to begin the year to see how they adjust. I'm not worried about Howard Sampson. He started at North Carolina last year. He's a good tackle. Miami of Ohio, jumping from that to Texas Tech, though, could be a struggle at first. So we'll see how he does there. But that'll be the interesting spot to watch is how they look on the tackles to begin the year. They're returning 2 interior offensive lines, including the center and right guard. So they're returning experience on the interior of the offensive line, which is big. Offense was very good last year. This is not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the defense. They revamped this defense at Texas Tech this year. You look at Romello Height. He had 3 sacks. He's from Georgia Tech. Skylar Jill Howard from NIU, 7 tackles for loss. And then you go look at the linebackers. They go get David Bailey from Stanford. He had 6 sacks. Jacob Rodriguez, he returns, had a very good year last year, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 3 pass deflections. They go get a corner from Mississippi State, Bryce Pollock. He had 7 pass deflections and interception. He could have a big year. Deontay Bolfer, 9 PDs and 2 interceptions. He's returning. He could have another big year. But they revamped this defense. If you look at the 11 starters, 6 or projected 7 of them are going to be transfers. So it's a heavily relied on the transfers, and they needed it because the defense was so bad last year. They go get the defensive coordinator from Houston last year, who had a top 30 defense, very good defense at Houston last year. He's coming over, and they're going to need it. If you look at these numbers though from last year, again, we talked about the offense. They're returning a lot offensively, so we're talking a team that was 9th in total offense, 9th in passing, and 4th in scoring, and 7th on third down. Could even be better. Returning a quarterback and returning the same system is a huge deal in college football nowadays with so much change all the time. Having retention is always such a big deal. And they have it with Baron Morton. And again, 2 returning starting wide receivers is huge with chemistry. I expect Coy Eakin and Caleb Douglas to both have breakout years this year. And again, the defense is completely revamped. So Texas Tech is in prime position here. But we need to look at these defensive numbers because, again, it's a tall task to fix what the defense was last year. 132nd in passing. That was dead last. 73rd in rushing. 126 total defense. 121st scoring defense. 102nd sacks. 57th on third down. 104th in the red zone. Legit, one of the worst defenses in any power conference. Probably the worst defense in any power conference, actually. I mean, they were bottom 100 in almost every category defensively. They were terrible. So they went out and got a defense coordinator from Houston who had top 30 in almost every category. I looked at the numbers. I mean, he was really good defensively last year, Houston was. Houston's a team, they were okay, but, they went 4-8. They were actually terrible. But defensively, they were pretty solid, and I think that's the change that Joey McGuire is looking for because the offense is there. And if you can get the defense from 126th in total defense, bump it up to 60th. And I think this team who went 8-5 last year with that bad of a defense could take such a huge, astronomical jump. And so it'll be so interesting to see what the defense likes. And I think we'll know early on when they go to Utah and to Houston to see. I'm just so interested to see what they look like early on. If you look at the worst case scenarios, I think 7-5 is the worst they could do. Just because their schedule is nothing crazy. They start out with Pine Bluff, Kent State. Those are 2 wins, I think, no matter what. I say that they let Abilene Christian score 51 on them last year, but I think things will change. I mean, those are 2 wins. I think Oregon State's a win. But I could see them losing to Utah, especially against that Utah. They have to go to Kansas State. They have to go to West Virginia. Counting on my hand, that's 3. I think BYU's a losable game. That's 4. At Arizona State, that's 5. And I should say, it's closer to 6-6, but I'm going to say 7-5 is the worst they could do because I don't think the defense in any way can be as bad as it was last year. And they went 8-5 with that bad of a defense. So I think 7-5 is the worst because I think the offense will be just as good, if not even better, than was last year. The best case scenario, though, is 10-2. And I say that just because I don't think Texas Tech's defense, again, they can't go. I don't think they could go from 126 to top 20. But if they can get to the 60th range, they could go 10-2. I still think it'd be hard to win between the big 3 road games for me of at Arizona State, at Kansas State, and at West Virginia at the end of the year. I don't see them eking out all 3. They may get one. They may win 2 of them and go 11-1. But again, I don't think the defense can take that big of a jump to jump them ahead to where I think I have them at 11-1. I think the best case scenario would be 10-2. And for Texas Tech fans, they'd be on cloud 9, especially if they went and won the Big 12 championship. Then they're in the college football playoff, which is a very real scenario. If I want to look at most likely, I'm going to say 9-3. If you look at who he brought in the portal defensively, I think it is enough to give them an edge to go. And again, the defensive coordinator they brought in from Houston did some very good things at Houston last year. And I think he'll provide enough boost. And you have enough returning experience on offense to keep the offensive numbers high. They'll still be in shootout games, but going from 8-4 in the regular season, I think 9-3, taking just a 1-win jump would be enough. Because, again, between the big games of at Utah, at Arizona State, at Kansas State, at West Virginia, and then BYU at home, if you lose 3 of those, but win every other game on your schedule, you don't get upset by anybody, like you did last year with TCU or someone like that, I think that's a pretty successful season. And if you go 9-3, there's a small chance, but there's a chance you get to the Big 12 championship game. And if they win that, they're in the college football playoff. So very high aspirations for Texas Tech this year. Again, 9-3 being the most likely. And that would be, again, a very successful season. And it's just continuing to build on top of the great recruiting Joey McGuire's done. He's got an NIL factory over there at Texas Tech. And continuing to make the defense from 126th to top tier. I think based on what I've seen him do in the portal, and I think what I'm seeing right now is he's trying to take the Tennessee approach that Josh Heupel did. And what I mean by that is that when Josh Heupel started at Tennessee, the offense did really good, but the defense was really, really bad. His second year, the defense still was okay. The passing numbers really bad, just like Texas Tech's. They were in the 120s. Offense was really good. And then I think he's continuing to build that trend up by building the defensive line up, which is what he's done. He's got Georgia Tech, Illinois transfers, Stanford transfers all along the front 7, building that up, and I think it's going to lead to better defensive numbers this year. And then once you build that defensive line, you build that secondary, and you have a top-tier defense. And I think that's what the approach he's doing, and I think it's going to work. And so having a 9-3 year this year, and you win a bowl game, you go 10-3, or you make the playoff, because you never know what can happen in the sport, and you make a run there, and you're building momentum for the future, especially with all the NIL. Texas Tech's NIL abilities are so endless with how much money they have. So, watch out for the next 5 years of Texas Tech athletics. Not just football. basketball and baseball and softball. You're already seeing it in softball. You're already seeing it in men's basketball. But Texas Tech's definitely a football program to watch out for these next couple years. With that being said, that'll wrap up our video of Oklahoma and Texas Tech. I hope y'all enjoyed. Again, I think the next video, next teams, I want to do Notre Dame and Oregon together, but I don't think it'll be the next one. I think the next one I'm going to do is Tennessee and Georgia. Georgia's got a lot of weird stuff going on, like Gunnar Stockton's quarterback, but we don't really know much about Georgia this year. We just know that they have five-star talent that they're reloading with. Tennessee had the whole Nico situation in the offseason. They have a new quarterback now, Joey Aguilar. Lost James Pierce, lost a lot of big guys up on the defensive line. Still have Jamal McCoy in the corner, so they're going to be an intriguing team. So many different ways they could go. They're a wild card. And then you got Georgia, the powerhouse, looking to get back to a national championship. All right, with that being said, I'll wrap it up. Again, if you like the video, like and subscribe. And yeah, thank y'all.